May 18th, 1980. The eruption at Mount St. Helens not only blasted out half a cubic mile of solid rock from the top of the mountain, but it rocked evolutionary thinking at its foundation.
I believe that the eruption of Mount St. Helens will be remembered as one of the most significant events of the 20th century, geologic events of the 20th century. When people look back on the 20th century and ask what was going on geologically to challenge evolution theory and the idea that Earth features form slowly and gradually, I believe that Mount St. Helens will be remembered as one of those most significant events.
Many scientists insist that the Earth is extremely old because that's the only way to explain the complexity of the world around us. And that's why Mount St. Helens is such a phenomenon. None of the recent formations there are supposed to have happened in just 10 years. They're supposed to take hundreds of thousands or even millions of years to form. Dr. Steve Austin from the Institute for Creation Research took us around the mountain and showed us a few of those surprises. First was this series of canyons north of the mountain, with walls 140 feet high. The May 18th eruption laid down the bottom layers, and then later mud flows and pumice flows added completely different-looking layers. So different-looking, you might think they came from separate geologic eras.
If I did not know about Mount St. Helens and the eruption of Mount St. Helens back in 1980, and I had just accidentally come across this canyon, I might assume that this canyon, a whole series of canyons here, were cut by that stream running down through there, one sand grain at a time over thousands of years.
Dr. Austin showed us one 25-foot section of very finely layered rock.
If you were here watching the June 12th, 1980 pumice flow deposit form, you'd be dead, okay? It was that hazardous of an environment. Nobody actually saw the individual layers form. Underneath this ground-hugging cloud of volcanic ash and steam, I suppose, this layer formed. We believe it took minutes for individual layers to form.
Along with the canyon network, you can see the new cliffs right outside the crater. The sheer force of the blast cut straight through the wall of hard rock. The blast also leveled 150 square miles of forest in 6 minutes. Millions of mature trees lay scorched and scattered like toothpicks. And the once pristine Spirit Lake was covered with a floating log mat. To many people's surprise, some logs began to fall out from the mat and stand vertically on the bottom of the lake.
In 1985, when we did this sonar survey of Spirit Lake, we estimate there were 20,000 upright logs standing in the bottom of this lake. What would the lake look like if you drained it? It would look like an enormous forest. And these logs fall out at different times and have their root ends buried at different levels in the lake. The sedimentation is going on rapidly in the lake, and so these logs are getting buried here, having the appearance of being multiple forests. Now, we might assume that each of these forests would grow here over thousands of years, but it just formed recently in a matter of years.
There's another place where you can see giant logs standing straight up, and that's in a petrified forest, like the one in Yellowstone National Park.
Geologists have suggested from a conventional experience that it might have taken 50 million years to deposit the logs at Yellowstone and some of the other strata around it, millions of years. Yet here at Spirit Lake, we see that this can form more rapidly.
Beneath the surface of the lake, another amazing thing is happening. There's a layer of peat forming from the tree bark and debris, up to 3 feet thick.
Most people think that peat forms very slowly in swamps, perhaps 1,000 years to build up the plant material that forms an inch of coal. Yet this peat bed formed very rapidly in Spirit Lake, and so it brings to my mind more rapid formation theories for the origin of coal.
As a Christian, have you gotten any insight into the nature of God by having either seen or studied this whole area?
More and more, I believe that God is sovereign and all-powerful, and I think we can, just thinking about the volcano, 400 million tons of TNT blast energy released in one day, equivalent to 20,000 atomic bombs. I realize that God specializes in doing things that I think are impossible. Right here at the volcano, impossibilities have been accomplished in a very reasonable fashion. We just didn't know about it. My ordinary, customary way of thinking has been challenged, and I need to think in this new dimension as a result of Mount St. Helens.
Here's a link for some of the other evidences for young Earth. And next we're going to look at some of the statements made by leaders of the present time. Here's one by Isaac Asimov. You may want to pause to read it. Here's a comic strip, as it says, mocking young Earth creationists. Here's one that talks about the complete idiot guide to creationism. Here's one from Arthur Clarke. Here's one from a minister. And here's one from William Reynolds. Wouldn't these be described as scoffing? Their reactions could have been not to care, an unfamiliarity with it, or even violence. But scoffing is exactly what it is, and that's what the Bible said it would be. It's an attempt to keep others from following our path. It's like saying you don't want to be like them, do you? It's an attempt to embarrass you. So don't be swayed. We were told they would come, and we were told what was wrong with their argument.